my goal is just to keep doing what I'm doing, and that is to write about the things that I'm really passionate about, do it in a way that's legitimate. You know, I source all my information. I try to be very careful to be very accurate about what I write about, and then to, you know, give opinion about that, you know. And sometimes I think one of the services, if you want to call it that I can provide is giving progressives a way to talk about the issues that are going on around them. Sometimes there's just so much noise and there's so much sort of dispassionate reporting about just the facts without any sort of analysis that progressives sometimes don't realize how it's impacting them and how they can talk to their neighbors or their family or their coworkers about a particular issue. And on the other side of the spectrum, the conservative folks are getting that on a daily basis from the radio talk shows and from the television shows that they watch on Fox and things like that. They're being basically given ways to talk about these things and frameworks from which to talk about things. And I think that we don't do that as well on the progressive side, so that's one of the things that I try to do. And a lot of times it means I'm learning about stuff as they're coming up. Workers' comp, for example, is something that I knew a little bit about, but not a lot. And in the process of educating myself, I'm able to sort of now go to an audience who doesn't really know that much about it, much like I didn't before I researched it, and show them the salient points that, you know, and try to do it in a way that keeps their attention, you know, and, you know, gets them excited about it or interested in it.
Maybe you can become the Frank Luntz of the left, because the left is pretty lousy at messaging compared to the right.
They're getting better at it, I have to say.
Part of the challenge is that I think that, as we know from some recent research, the authoritarian mind likes nice, simple slogans. The problem with us lefties is that we want complexity and everything in the gray. It's
true. It's very true. And it makes it really difficult sometimes to talk about issues that are going on around us with people who are talking in 2 dimensions and you're trying to operate in 3 dimensions, you know. You just sort of pass through their little, or they pass through your whole world, and, you know, they have very easy slogans and bumper stickers, but they don't, you know, I think people like it, they like things kept simple, you know, and that's really part of the reason why I think people self-select themselves to certain news sources, because it doesn't become confusing to them. They don't have to think about it. They just get it, you know, they get everything reaffirms what they already believe. So, and you know, and I'm more than willing to challenge people from the progressive side when I feel like they're making a mistake in some issue, whether it's messaging or how they're approaching things, or some politician is doing something that I don't think is appropriate or is helpful. You know, I'm willing to call that out. You know, and I've done that. I've taken a lot of heat for my criticism of the Michigan Democratic Party, but I think that it's done in a heartfelt desire to have the Michigan Democratic Party be a champion for the middle class and for, you know, the progressive ideals that I think that if you look at the Democratic platform, we really do represent. But I don't feel like sometimes we do a very good job as a state party of holding true to that platform. So I will push back when I think it's important to do that. And I think that gives me a little credibility. I'm not a one-trick pony. I like to think that I'm fair about it. I wanted to be a writer, but unfortunately when I was in high school I had an English teacher who sort of discouraged me, which is unfortunate, or fortunate, I don't know. So I pursued a career in something I could make some money in, which is chemistry. And it's, you know, I've done very well with it, but I've never lost my passion for writing. And I have a keen desire to bring together pieces of information and sort of analyze them and synthesize them, and I think that's something I do fairly well. So when blogging became mainstream to the point where anybody could do it, I thought I would use that as a way to sort of exercise my writing muscle, because I really didn't have any other way to do that, and I'm not the kind of person who writes very well like in a diary. So this was a way of being able to write for an audience, which gave me, you know, it gave me some, it stimulated my writing. Early on, I call it Eclectablog because early on I was just writing about anything that I wanted to write about. It was very eclectic. It literally wasn't that much political. But as I became personally more politically involved as an activist and as an organizer and stuff, my writing sort of followed along with me, and it coincided with a sort of drop-off in the amount of writing that was being done about political issues in the state, and nationally too, but mostly in the state. And so I began to sort of fill a niche, really, when it came down to it. There were very few people out there writing about a lot of the issues that were happening, and also a lot of the mainstream media sources, especially in the state, really weren't covering a lot of these progressive issues in ways that I felt were fair or covering them at all. And we've seen that countless times where big rallies at the Capitol, for example, go completely unreported by Detroit News and Detroit Free Press. Or, you know, this past week we had a really significant hearing on workers' compensation reform, and it hasn't been written about to speak of. So these are things that are out there. People need to know about them, but they're not being written about. So I feel now more than ever that I'm actually filling an empty space out there. And I think it's important that it's not just me. I encourage other people to do it. It's happening some, but not as much as I'd like to see. But I just feel like, we are at the epicenter of a lot of seismic change politically in Michigan. I mean, as much as what's going on in Wisconsin and Ohio and stuff are getting attention, what's going on in Michigan in a lot of ways is sort of sliding under the radar because we don't have this strongly ideologically driven governor like they do in Wisconsin. And while we do have an ideological legislature who's abetted by our governor, I think a lot of it's gone unnoticed. And when I look back now at my headlines as they relate to Michigan, I realize just how much there is that's happening, and a lot of it is going unreported. So, that's sort of the nutshell of where I'm at today and how I got to where I'm at. Yeah, I started out, I'm guessing about 8 years ago, so 2003-ish, 2002-ish. It started out with a different name and on a different platform, and I sort of hopped around. The one platform I was blogging on, they went away, and then I started at another one, and I eventually decided these were more blogging communities where it was local groups of, we're not even local, but groups of people online. A lot of these people were from Europe as well, and we were sort of blogging for each other. At a certain point I decided to try jumping off into just having my own blog that was unaffiliated with other blogs, and that's where I'm at today. I use Blogger as my platform, but I do have my own domain, and again, it's morphed over those years. I've transitioned. To some extent, I've had to keep a pretty low profile where I work because what I do is completely separate from my political activism and stuff. So you don't see my name all over my blog like you might on some, although it's there and you can find it. So that's.
Now, what do the people at work say? One of the things about freedom of the press in this country is that you really don't have freedom of the press if the minute you express your opinion you get fired.
Well, I honestly, if people where I work know about it, they don't talk about it, and I don't talk about it, so I just keep it completely separate. And that's true much of my life, so I don't live where I work, so that helps me. I leave town every day and sort of pick up my life where I left it at the city limits.
So you've been able to compartmentalize so that you have this, one of the challenges, as you say, is that the part of the challenge with reporting on politics nowadays is what is the economic model to have this happen. Yeah. You've looked at trying to make this a career, but it's not really feasible.
Yeah, as of right now, there's really no model to make a career out of it yet, and that may happen yet. I mean, obviously, my goal is eventually to do this. Whether that's blogging for an organization or I actually predict eventually that a new model will eventually emerge. I think that it's going to be essential that that media outlets become paying. I just don't think that companies like like Gannett and stuff can go on forever just giving away their news. I think they're going to have to go behind paywalls and stuff like that, the way New York Times has started to do. That's very important. And when that happens, then there becomes money available to actually hire people again instead of firing people and laying off half their staff like they're doing now. But I do think that at some point, blogging as a citizen journalism type of a thing will. I just think there's a big empty space there for people to make money, including the people providing the content, and that the beauty of a capitalist system, to the extent that there is beauty, is that if there's a vacuum there, it'll get filled eventually. So, especially if it means somebody can make some money off it. But the key is now to transition from other people making money off the content provided by people who don't make any money off it, and that's not sustainable, not for quality journalism.
Well, one of the challenges of the corporate model is that then they would want control. I mean, they, I think, in some ways overvalue their gatekeeper function. Mm-hmm. Citizen journalists have shown that they don't really always have to have a gatekeeper to do a good job. So are those compromises? It seems to me we need a full spectrum journalism.
You do, and I don't, there's a couple of things going on right now. One is that people sort of self-select themselves to the news source that provides the perspective that they themselves agree with, and that's becoming more and more prevalent all the time, and being online has made it even more that way. And I agree with you that if I was to be hired by an organization that wanted me to change how I blog, I probably wouldn't do it, because frankly my passion wouldn't be there, and I wouldn't enjoy it any more than I would enjoy mowing lawns or any other particular task. It would just become something I was doing for somebody else. So I have to be doing it for myself. But I do think that I hope anyway, and I have some confidence that eventually there will be a model that opens up that allows people to continue to report from their position, but that maybe aggregates a lot of those different positions so that, you know, you can get the full spectrum, but maybe not from one individual. So for example, you could have a site set up where you have conservative and liberal and independent bloggers or writers providing content, so that when you go there, you know that Chris Savage is going to be providing the liberal progressive position from one set of that progressive, you know, viewpoint, and you might get a conservative opinion and conservative writing from another person, and you'll be able to see really the whole. So it allows you to have people who are focused on a particular worldview, but you bring a bunch of worldviews together in one place. So it's sort of, I don't know, it's an interesting way of looking at it. But instead of having these dispassionate reporters that just report the facts and don't provide any analysis, you could have different analysis of the same topics in the same place. So that'll be interesting to see if that happens. Right now, for bloggers who are getting, you know, medium to low traffic, and I would put mine on that right now, I'm probably getting, you know, between 5,000 and 10,000 hits a week, which is, in terms of the big blogs, pretty small. There's really not a lot of money to be made from ad revenue. In fact, places like Advertising Liberally won't even pick you up until you're making, you know, so you're getting 50 to 100,000 hits a month. So that's not out there. You can make some money with Google ads, you can make some money with other ad sources, but it's pretty trivial. You know, we're talking literally $5 a month or a week, maybe at the most, and that's on a good week. My model recently has been to reach out to organizations who, you know, if I can put up 5 advertisements on my website and get $50 a month for them, now that starts to become actual money. And a $50 monthly donation is not out of the ordinary for an organization who's trying to get out a message. So you'll see starting next month, I've actually picked up, I've got a guy who's giving his father, who owns an electric shop in Ann Arbor, a 2-month advertisement on my website for his dad for Christmas. So that's one option. And then I've got We Are the People are going to be putting up a banner ad at the top next week. So, you know, I'd like to transition from trying to make money off of ads from some company that just provides ads for cellulite reduction or pills or whatever, to something, you know, to organizations that want the readers of my blog who come there to get a progressive viewpoint. They want those eyes, and it's a more targeted audience for them. So there may be some, you know, opportunities for unions or progressive groups across the country to reach people in Michigan predominantly, you know, through my blog, for example. So that could be a different model where I'd cut out the middleman, if you will, for, you know, placing ads and just reach out to people that would place them directly with me.